Sarah, a 25-year-old girl with brown hair and tired eyes, lived alone in an old, creaky house in Scotland. Wide fields of grass and flowers stretched around her, with twisting dirt paths leading far away. Her nearest neighbor was a 30-minute walk, so she only heard the wind and the house's groans. Being alone felt calm but heavy, especially after her mother died last month from a heart attack. Sarah grew up with her strict mother, who spoke angrily about Sarah's father. He left when Sarah was 4, and her mother called him a coward who ran away without a word. Her stories lacked details, full of bitterness, leaving Sarah with big questions about her past that hurt like a sore spot. One cold, gray afternoon, Sarah went to the attic to look through her mother's things. Dust floated in the dim light from a cracked window, making shadows on the wooden floor. She saw boxes of old photos, worn clothes, and small items, each one feeling like a piece of her mother's life. Her hand touched an old leather diary, worn but holding together. She felt curious and brushed off the dust. When she opened it, her heart skipped. The first page said 2004, the year her father vanished. Her hands shook as she flipped the fragile, yellowed pages and stopped at an entry from July 5th, her parents' anniversary, in her mother's neat handwriting. The diary said her mother tucked Sarah into bed that night. At 8 p.m., Sarah hugged her stuffed rabbit, soft from many cuddles. Her mother smoothed her hair and said, "Sleep well, my sweet girl." Her voice sad in a way Sarah didn't understand. Then, her mother went downstairs to set up a special dinner. She knew her husband was cheating with another woman, and it broke her heart. But she hoped a perfect night could fix their marriage and bring back their old love. The dining room glowed with candles and silver holders, their light dancing on the walls. A white tablecloth covered the table, set with nice plates, shiny forks, and wine glasses that sparkled. The smell of roasted chicken, crispy and golden, mixed with the sweet scent of apple pie cooling nearby. A bottle of red wine sat ready for a happy night. Sarah's mother worked in the kitchen, her hair in a bun, humming softly as she stirred gravy, a small smile on her face. She put fresh roses from the garden on the table, their red petals bright, their smell filling the air. She worked hard to make everything perfect, hoping to save her marriage. But the night broke when her father's phone rang. The loud sound cut through the soft music. It kept ringing, and her mother knew it was the other woman. The diary said her mother got mad and told him to turn it off. "We're having a special night," she said sharply, holding a spoon tightly, her eyes angry as she put mashed potatoes on the table. Her father looked surprised and fumbled with his phone, mumbling. He turned it off, but he got mad too. "It's just a call," he said loudly. "Why make a big deal?" He leaned back, arms crossed, his face red from wine and anger. The room felt heavy. Sarah's mother's face turned red, her voice shaking. "You always pick her over me," she yelled, slamming a plate down. The sound echoed. "I'm tired of being less important." The roses shook and the candles flickered as her voice covered the music. The night she planned turned into a mess. Her father got angry. "You're crazy," he shouted, grabbing the wine bottle and throwing it at the wall. It broke, and red wine splashed like blood on the tablecloth and floor. He slipped on the wet floor and fell hard. His head hit the broken glass, and blood poured out. He groaned, holding his head. "Help me," he cried, his voice weak. His hands scratched the floor, blood running through his fingers. "Call someone." He reached out, shaking, eyes scared. "I'm sorry," he gasped, breathing fast. "Don't let me die." His voice broke, and he tried to sit up, blood dripping down his face. Her mother sat in the corner, her face a mix of anger and fear, remaining there until her husband took his last breath. The room felt too small, the silence loud as his groans faded. When he stopped moving, her mother moved fast. Scared, she cleaned the blood off the floor, the smell sharp. She wrapped his body in a heavy blanket and dragged it to the backyard in the dark. Under the old oak tree, its branches watching, she buried him. She kept a small wooden box with a letter for Sarah, hiding the terrible secret alone. Sarah's heart raced as she read this. Her breath stuck. She thought her father left them. Now she knew he was killed in anger. She felt mad and sad, her stomach tight, hands shaking as she closed the diary. She needed to know more. Was he gone forever? The truth felt heavy, like a rock in her chest. Sarah called the police, her voice shaky as she told them about the diary. The officer sounded unsure, but said they'd send people to check the backyard. Waiting, Sarah's mind spun. Would they believe her? Would they find anything? She walked back and forth, the house creaking, the wind rattling the windows. At dusk, 2 officers came, a man with a serious face and a woman with sharp eyes. They brought shovels, their faces stern under flashlight glow. They dug by the oak tree, where the diary said her father was buried. Sarah stood close, her breath showing in the cold air, her heart pounding. Each scoop of dirt felt long, the sound loud in the quiet night. The air smelled of wet dirt and something bad. Hours passed, the officers digging quietly. Sarah's hope faded with each empty scoop, her hands twisting in her pockets. Then, a thud stopped them. They looked worried. "What's that?" Sarah asked, her voice shaking. "Careful," the man said, his voice low. They dug more, and a bad smell hit the air, making Sarah cover her mouth. They uncovered a body wrapped in rotting cloth, decayed beyond recognition, the fabric clinging to bones. Beside it was a small wooden box, caked in dirt, its edges splintered from years underground. The female officer opened the box with gloved hands. Inside was a letter, yellowed and stained, addressed to Sarah. She read it aloud, her voice steady but soft. "Sarah, forgive me for what I've done. The truth is free now. Love, Mom, 2004. The words felt heavy, making Sarah shiver. Her mother's words hung heavy in the air, chilling Sarah to the bone. Tears filled her eyes as she stood under the oak tree, her mother's confession sinking in. The truth was out, but it broke her heart, changing everything she knew about her life. Jake lived alone in a small cabin deep in the Minnesota woods. It was 2008, and he'd moved there to escape the noise of city life. The cabin was old, surrounded by thick pines, with the nearest neighbor miles away. Winter was harsh, snow piling high, but Jake loved the quiet. He chopped wood, kept a fire going, and felt safe in his solitude. That changed one freezing January night. Jake was warming his hands by the fire when he heard a faint thud outside. His dog, Max, barked sharply. Jake grabbed his flashlight and peered through the frosted window. Snow swirled in the dark, but nothing moved. Then, another thud closer, near the porch. Heart pounding, he picked up his rifle and cracked the door open. A figure stood in the snow, swaying, wrapped in a torn coat. It was a man, young and thin, his face pale and eyes wide with fear. "Who are you?" Jake called, keeping his rifle ready. "Please, help," the man croaked, shivering. "I'm lost. I need shelter." Jake hesitated. The man looked harmless, nearly frozen. Against his gut, he let him in, locking the door behind them. The stranger collapsed by the fire, muttering thanks. His name was Tom, and he said he'd been hiking when a blizzard hit, stranding him. Jake gave him a blanket and hot coffee, but something felt off. Tom's eyes darted around, like he was checking the room. "You're lucky you found my place," Jake said, watching him closely. "Not many houses out here." Tom nodded, but his hands shook, not just from cold. "Yeah, lucky," he mumbled, avoiding Jake's gaze. Jake decided to stay alert. He'd seen Home Alone as a kid and remembered Kevin's traps. He quietly set up a few: a string with bells across the hallway, a stack of cans by the back door, and a loose floorboard that creaked loudly. If Tom tried anything, Jake would know. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He kept his rifle by his bed and Max at his feet. Around 2 a.m., the bells jingled softly. Max growled. Jake crept out, heart racing, and saw Tom in the hallway, frozen, staring at the bells. "Just needed the bathroom," Tom whispered, but his eyes were wild, like he'd been caught. Jake nodded, pretending to believe him. "Go ahead. I'm a light sleeper." Tom shuffled back to the couch, but Jake didn't trust him. The next morning, he found muddy footprints near the back door fresh, not from when Tom arrived. The cans hadn't fallen, but someone had been there. Jake's stomach twisted. Had Tom gone outside? Or was someone else out there? He confronted Tom. "You've been outside. I found tracks." Tom's face paled. "No, I swear." "I stayed here." His voice cracked. "But they might have followed me." "Who?" Jake demanded, gripping his rifle. Tom's shoulders slumped. "Men I owe money to. Bad people. I was running from them when the storm hit. They're dangerous." Jake's blood ran cold. He'd heard stories about loan sharks tracking debtors to remote places. Tom's story fit the rumors. "Why didn't you tell me?" Jake asked. "I was scared," Tom said. "They'll kill me if they find me, and anyone helping me." Jake's cabin, once his safe haven, felt like a trap. He told Tom to stay put and checked outside. New tire tracks cut through the snow near the road. Not there yesterday. Someone was close. Jake rigged more traps. A bucket of tools above the front door, a slick patch of oil by the back steps, and a flashlight rigged to flicker if the power line was touched. That evening, as the wind howled, Max barked wildly. Headlights flashed through the windows. 2 trucks, idling in the dark. Jake grabbed Tom and shoved him into the basement. "Stay quiet," he hissed. He checked his traps and waited, rifle ready. A loud bang hit the front door. The bucket fell, tools crashing, followed by a yell. Jake peered out and saw a man stumbling, clutching his head. Another figure moved in the shadows, circling the cabin. The power cut, plunging the house into darkness. The flashlight flickered someone had tampered with the line. Jake's heart pounded. He heard footsteps crunching outside, then a window shattering. The cans by the back door clattered. Max snarled, and Jake fired a warning shot through the broken window. "Get out," he shouted. The footsteps stopped. A voice called, low and calm. "Give us Tom. We don't want you." Jake's hands shook. He whispered to Tom, "What do they want?" "They think I stole from them," Tom said, trembling. "I didn't, but they won't listen." Jake made a choice. He grabbed a spare coat, stuffed it with pillows, and propped it near the window like a decoy. He told Tom to sneak out the basement hatch and run for the woods. "I'll hold them off," Jake said. As Tom slipped out, Jake fired another shot, drawing attention. The men stormed the front, tripping over the oil patch. Jake ran out the back, joining Tom in the snow. They sprinted through the trees, cold biting their faces. Behind them, shouts and gunshots echoed. Jake knew the woods better than the strangers. He led Tom to a frozen creek, hiding under a fallen log. Hours later, the trucks roared away. Jake and Tom stumbled to a ranger station, where police took Tom to safety. Jake returned to his cabin, finding it trashed, windows broken, furniture smashed. A note was pinned to the door. "You hit him. We'll be back." Tom later told police he'd borrowed money from a crime ring in Minneapolis, tied to drug trafficking. When he couldn't pay, they hunted him. The case led to arrests, but some men vanished, never caught. Jake sold his cabin and moved, Haunted by the night, his home became a battlefield.
Maria. This all started during one of the busiest months of my year. September is always chaotic for me. As a team leader for a small tech company based in Denver, Colorado, my schedule is jam-packed with project deadlines, client meetings, and budget reviews. I barely had time to breathe, let alone go home to my small apartment. I was living in a cozy one-bedroom unit on the second floor of an older building. The rent was reasonable, and the location was perfect for my work. The place had its quirks, creaky floors, thin walls, but it felt like home. My neighbors mostly kept to themselves, and I liked the quiet. I'd lived there for nearly 3 years, and up until now, nothing strange had ever happened. The first thing I noticed was the milk. I opened the fridge one evening after a long day, ready to pour myself a bowl of cereal. But when I looked in, I saw only a small amount left, far less than I remembered. I shrugged it off, chalking it up to my exhaustion. My mind was clouded with work stress, and I figured I must have used more than I thought. Then came the curtains. I had a habit of keeping my balcony curtains drawn tight when I left for work, ensuring no one could peek inside. But one evening, as I returned home from a long day, I noticed they were slightly parted, just enough to make my skin crawl. I convinced myself I must have bumped them when I was rushing out the door. One Friday, I wrapped up work early and decided to give my apartment a thorough cleaning. I vacuumed the floors, wiped down all the surfaces, and even changed my sheets. After a long hot shower, I stepped out feeling more refreshed than I had in a long time. But then I walked into the bathroom and saw something that sent a chill down my spine. My toothbrush was wet, soaking wet, like it had been freshly used. The bristles were bent outward, not how they looked when they dried naturally. It was as if someone had just brushed their teeth with it. I lived alone, so this was unsettling. I picked it up, staring at it in disbelief, then brought it to my nose. The minty scent confirmed my worst fears. Someone had used my toothbrush. Backing away from the bathroom, I did a thorough sweep of my apartment. All the doors were locked and nothing seemed out of place. No signs of forced entry, no open drawers, nothing. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I started to wonder if I had just forgotten brushing my teeth before my shower, but I knew I hadn't. That night, I lay in bed, tossing and turning, replaying every oddity from the week: the missing milk, the curtains, my toothbrush. Had someone been coming into my apartment while I was gone? Had I accidentally left a door unlocked? The next morning, I called my landlord to ask if any maintenance work had been done. She assured me that nothing recent had been scheduled, but then I remembered that a few weeks earlier, the maintenance guy had come in to fix the lock on the balcony door. Could he have made a copy of the key? It seemed improbable, but the thought lingered in my mind like a persistent shadow. That afternoon, I headed to a local electronics store and picked up a basic indoor security camera. It wasn't top of the line, but it would do the job. I placed it high on a shelf, pointed straight at the entrance to my apartment. That night, I tried to sleep, but I kept waking up to check the app on my phone. Each time, there was no movement. I felt a little better, convinced I was just imagining things. Then came Wednesday. I had a late meeting and didn't get home until almost midnight. Exhausted, I heated up some leftovers and skipped my usual routine. I decided to check the footage from the camera before bed, something I now did religiously. As I watched the clip from earlier that evening, my heart dropped. At 5:00 p.m., motion triggered the camera. A figure emerged from the shadows on the balcony. It was a man, wearing a hoodie and jeans, who had climbed up from the street, or perhaps from a neighboring balcony. He strolled through the open balcony door, surveying the room as if he owned the place, and then made his way directly into my living room. I felt paralyzed, unable to comprehend what was happening. Time seemed to speed up as I watched him roam through my home, eating, drinking, and even using my toothbrush. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't happening. I watched as he glanced out the window, then casually walked back toward the balcony. In a moment, he slipped back outside, disappearing into the night as if he had never been there. I called 911, my hands shaking as I explained everything. An officer arrived quickly and watched the footage with me. He called for backup and they searched the area around my building. They found no trace of the man, but noted that he could have come from any balcony in the vicinity, and the idea sent a wave of fear through me. I felt sick. How long had this person been using my space? Days? Weeks? The officers searched the entire building, but found no one, no strange faces, no one who'd been coming and going. I couldn't stay there anymore. I booked a hotel for a few nights while my landlord arranged for the balcony access to be secured. I changed all the locks in my apartment and upgraded my security system. I even bought a second camera for my bedroom, just in case. The bathroom door remained shut, and I kept my toothbrush hidden away in a drawer. Every time I brushed my teeth, I glanced at the mirror, checking behind me just to be sure. The police never caught the man. They suggested he was likely someone who found a place to hide. Maybe he wasn't dangerous, but I couldn't shake the fear that clung to me like a shadow. Finally, I decided to move out of the apartment permanently. After a month of living in fear, I realized that a new place was my only option for safety. I still think about that first day. I noticed the milk, probably the first sign that I wasn't truly alone. I couldn't shake the feeling that he might come back. So, I made the hard choice to leave behind the cozy space I had called home for 3 years. It was tough, but I knew I had to go.